Hello everyone. My name is Abhishek and I work as a software developer at Google. Uh, I would like to welcome you in this cohort by Interview Help on system design rounds, which will be focused on both the high level design and low level design. So, just to get some context, like who's joining, can you just share the number of years of experience which you guys are carrying?
15 years.
Great. Feel free to use the chat as much as you want. Uh, that will help me to answer the questions. Great. So I think like most of us are having some experience. So like let's say if you're someone who's having experience of more than 2 years, system design to some extent is the expectation from you. Generally, the design rounds are of two types. One is the high level design, and the other one is the low level design round. And both vary like from company to company. Let's say Amazon requires you to have some high level design, even if you are a fresher. Companies like Google, let's say, expect you to have some knowledge of the high level design. Maybe after like you're a senior, so L5 rules basically, if you are having more than 4 or 5 years of experience. So that is the expectation. Again, low level design like ties up to the way you code into a system, how your classes are structured, more of the nitty gritty details rather than the overall architecture. So low level design is the expectation from like every software developer, while the high level knowledge is like just the basics will help you. So like while you prepare, these are just a few pointers. So like once you start studying any of the high level design or the low level design, especially for the interviews, make sure you document everything on this journey. Uh, First, why is that you just do it as a one-time investment, and like once you have your notes, you can just revisit them. There are multiple ways to solve a particular problem, and like while you're studying, you'll see multiple trade-offs we face like between designs. And like if knowing the designs, like what went where and what was the challenges we faced on deciding a particular design, uh, noting them down will actually help you to like give and justify your stand in a real world interview, or even in your day-to-day work as well. So just some overview. Let's say you're given a question, and it's a high level design round. So basically, let's say Amazon, Google, all of them have this architectural interview, and they will be very specific that whether it's a high level design round or a LLD round. So let's say they give you a problem statement. So uh, the problem statement can be very vague. Let's say design a design an Instagram clone, or the problem statement can be a part of it. That okay, design the news feed of the Facebook app. So either of them are acceptable. So let's say if the problem statement is very broad, like let's say if the question is to design a social media platform, get the specifics out from the interviewer that what his or her expectation is from the question. You don't want to solve or focus on an area which the interviewer does not care about. So let's say some features which are important to you, like image sharing, might not be a burning problem for the interviewer, and they may be like interested in a completely different part of the application which you are designing. So ask a lot of questions just to be clear. Uh, Pick out or cherry pick 4 or 5 main burning issues which you want to tackle in this round, because generally the HLD rounds are of 1 hour length, and you don't want to waste your time again focusing on the areas which will not give you much result. Uh, One common issue which I see with students is that they like right away jump to the class diagram and stuff. But remember that high level design is not the low level design part. And you don't need to fall into the nitty gritties of how the classes will be structured, what are the classes, what are the service. Basically, and we are, instead of the classes, we are more focused on what are the overall architectural interactions between the system, what is the database we are going to prefer, uh, things like that, which will dive in further. So just like this is a very important point, that don't start implementing your solution right away. You don't need to code in that round much, and it's more of a whiteboarding session. So keep that in mind while solving for HLD. Again, be very, very careful with your assumptions. As I said, different interviewer comes with different problem statement in the mind, and most of it is like left to you to figure out. So few pointers on what you need to talk about is like what will be your database, how you're going to structure your uh, architecture. So basically, whether you are going to plan like a monolith or you are going to go with microservices, how you are going to monitor like once your system is in production, how you are going to track logs, what you're going to make sure the system is secured. So these are the few pointers, and we'll just try to dive in each of them. So let's say our high level design round is of 60 minutes, and you're given a task to create an e-commerce system, so something like Amazon you need to develop. So how I would proceed with this problem is that first I will try to understand what is the data which is going to be used in this particular problem. So let's say I will have some uh, so basically again I will have some data for the customers, I will have some data for the catalog items which I'll have, I will have some item information. So I would want to identify what is the data revolving my system. Then I will logically divide it into like tables, or let's say NoSQL schemas. And then I will say that okay, these are the tables which I'm able to think of. Then I'm going to think whether I need a relational database or a non-relational database. And you need to speak out loud, and in an actual interview you need to tell that what, like why are you choosing one over the other. So if let's say you are designing a banking system, so the consistency is of utmost important there. So you are going to the acid properties of the database is going to be very helpful for you. So you would want to go with a relational approach. But let's say if the acid properties you can like let go of, you can choose MongoDB or maybe like some other NoSQL databases for the faster retention. And like if you speak these things in an actual interview, that will actually show your caliber, that you and the depth of tech which you know, which is actually very good. Uh, so once you have the data figured out for your problem statement, then try to like let's say I generally prefer microservices architecture over monoliths, because it helps me to think independently of each component. So let's say I have a few things which are related to a particular order. So it's an order item, logistic order, how the order is going to fulfill. So all those related data tables, I'm going to pull it into a order management service. Something which is more concerned of delivery, we are going to create another microservice for logistic fulfillment. So like first create databases and put like broader boxes on services which you can categorize the data. And once you have your services ready, then you can define your endpoints, like the REST APIs which the end world can interact with. So this way, like it gives a very clear picture of your technical knowledge, your technical aptitude, and defines well that okay, your concepts are very clear in this area. Again, so talk about relational versus non-relational database in depth. Why you are going to choose a relational database or why you are not going to choose it. Give a few example. Know about the cap theorem, know about the acid properties, because again follow-ups may be asked in any of them. Another important question is that monolith versus microservice. So if you are following tech blogs, most of the companies are like they started using microservice and now they are going back to the monolith. So the trends have reversed in the last 1 year. So even companies like Amazon and all, uh, the Prime Video, which you must have used, have actually reverted back from monolith, from microservice to monolith, and saved a lot of bugs in that. So if you are using microservice, be very careful and understand your choices, that why one is justified over the other. Don't develop anything for the sake of development. Again, know the trade-offs very well, but again make sure that you speak this, that why you are using a particular architecture over the other. Another important thing about like the HLD round is that you can talk about how you are going to scale the system. So the common approach which generally everyone takes is that first design a simple solution which can cater to, let's say, 100,000 users, and then try to think that how you can like scale each component, how you can scale the database layer, how you can scale the application servers uh, independently. So talk about the scaling part as well, how you're going to how are you going to do horizontal scaling, vertical scaling, things like that. Again, for the success of each system, there needs to be placed a metric. So let's say it's a order management system, then the number of orders in a day is a metric. A number of customers, what rating they are giving, all of them are metric. So you need to tell that what are the metrics which you are going to track for this, for the success of your system. And let's say if something goes down, how are you going to figure that out? So what are the metrics you're going to track for the analytics, warehousing purpose? If something goes down, what's the backup plan? How are you going to like uh, pull back the system? So all things are actually like very very important in these discussions. Where to start? So yeah, these are the two big books which I recommend by Alex Zhu. Uh, Great books, very easy read, and like 15 systems each of them cover. So it's a very very light read, uh, technical but not that technical, and very interesting read. So basically, how you can develop, let's say, Instagram, how you can develop design YouTube, so things like that, you will have a good head start. Alternatively, like for both high level design, low level design, the interview help also provides you mentors from the big techs who can actually help you if you're getting stuck and in clearing those interviews. Some frequently asked questions for a high level design interview are like, design a social media platform. Again, you can like, this is a broad aspect, right? So design a social media platform like Instagram can be one question, or like you can be asked design the new news feed of Facebook. So this can be like a different problem in the same broader aspect. Design a video streaming service like maybe Netflix or maybe YouTube. Email, like Gmail. Payment portal can be uh, Amazon Pay, uh, Visa, PayPal. Web crawler, again, the search engine backend. E-commerce will be Alibaba or Amazon. So yeah, this is. I will like to take a pause here. So far so good. Any questions on the high level design aspect of things? I'll just pause it for 1 minute here, and I would like to take some questions. Feel free to ping and raise your hand.
I have one question about suggestion. The two books that you suggested, would do you have you heard of the Hacking the System Design Interview book? And would you suggest that as well, or do you know about that book? Your thoughts?
I actually haven't, I don't know about that book actually, but if it is on the similar like lines of this, that can be good as well. Another one, like another good resource is Groking the System interview.
Choking it into system.
Groking, Groking, I'll just type in here.
Okay, thank you.
Another one is Data Intensive Applications by Martin Kleppman. Cool. If we don't have any question, I think we can move forward. So low level design actually like is a very broad term, I would say. So different companies have different type of interview, like which is somewhat low level design, but like can have a different flavor. So like let's say some companies will give you a take home assignment. They will give you a problem statement, and the expectation is that you will be able to meet those requirement and like discuss the solution with an engineering hiring manager. So this is one way of the low level design round, which is famous. The other rounds can be like the other flavors can be a peer programming session. So basically, you will be paired with an interviewer for 3 hours or 2 3 hours, and then you are going to discuss with them the solutions and like implement them. Other thing can be that the interviewer comes, give you a question within 1.5 hour, they join back and you explain the solution to them. So all the flavors, like the expectation is still more or less the same. So in low level design, you are given a problem statement with multiple success criteria. You need to code the solution end to end and justify your implementation to an interviewer. So here the speed is of very like speed is very important here, because the requirements which are laid out on that question is a lot, and if you are slow, you won't be able to fulfill all the criterias, and the chances are that that interview will be bombed. So the best thing is that you need to practice these questions a lot. uh, in that sheet where they ask you to like, okay, these are the main requirements and these are secondary optional requirements. Try to fulfill all the primary requirements and also the optional secondary requirements which are there in the questions. Here you need to like code the solution very clearly in a concise manner using the best production practices. uh, Make sure that you have used apt variable names, correct method names. Code is modular. Like let's say sometime in an actual interview, uh, let's say you have completed your solution, then the interviewer will ask you a follow-up question. Okay, let's say if I don't want to use merge sort in this particular algorithm, I want to use a heap sort. How would I, what do I need to change in this solution? And let's say if at the point of change your code needs to go a lot of changes, then your design was not correct. So your code should be like very flexible in a manner that it should easily accommodate new changes. Try to use solid principles. Again, in many rounds I've seen that like after the implementation is done, unit tests are also important there. So given like let's say if you have some time left, right, to add some unit tests as well. Again, in the low level design round, try to add one or two or three, like minimum is one, maximum is three design patterns. These can be creational, structural, behavioral design pattern. I'm assuming that some basic knowledge you guys have. So let's say, from here, the behavioral pattern, let's say strategy pattern is actually one of the pattern which is used the most. So I'll give an example. So basically, in your code, there's a requirement where you need to sort your objects based on a criteria. Then the sorting criteria should be flexible enough to change in any future implementation. So there, the strategy pattern comes in very handy. Again, if I have to pick a few more important ones, that can be a template method pattern. If we talk about creational design pattern, builder pattern is a very good design pattern to reduce the object creation from constructors. So like it won't pollute your constructor into like multiple versions of the constructor. Instead, use a builder pattern there. Again, these are the few examples. Try to uh, showcase, maybe let's say use singleton pattern if you have some data which is required globally. So putting these in your low level design code will actually show that okay, you are actually a senior performer in the team. Again, these are like the multi-thread solutions might be a follow-up. So these are generally asked primarily to Java developers. So since my language of choice is Java, uh, I am often asked questions on low-level design round, which is more inclined towards multi-thread. So by that, I would mean is that, let's say, design a restaurant ordering system. So where there'll be an unlimited number of chef and orders can come in and when like they are. So I need to implement the blocking queue and say that okay, when the capacity is reached, how I'm going to reject further orders, what needs to be done in those cases. So if you are a Java developer, mostly like make sure that you have understanding of how multi-threaded systems work, because questions can be directly on the multi-threaded approach. How are you going to tackle, uh, let's say, multiple customers ordering at the same time? How are you going to tackle if the restaurant capacity is full? How will the customers know that once the capacity is available? So okay, so it can be like a restaurant system, it can be a hospital management system, it can be any system, as like we don't care. We are What we need to do is develop a generic system which knows how multi-threaded system works. So again, we have to start. So basically, a few things which were helpful for me. So there's a book by O'Reilly, Head First Design Patterns. Make sure that you go through this book once and try to implement the solutions on your own multiple times, so that like all those questions you can code from muscle memory itself, the design patterns especially. You can watch there are multiple YouTube videos on each of the problems. And there's one very good course by Michael Probinski, a former Google software engineer, Java multi-threading, concurrence, and performance optimization. So this course actually helped me a lot. You can also refer GitHub repositories of other developers. You can check in those projects on your workspace, try to play around them, try to mimic them end to end on your own. Because as I mentioned, this experience you won't get from solving lead code questions, and the speed, let's say, coding a system end to end within 2 hours or 3 hours will only come if I've practiced it like too many times. So again, try to fork the GitHub repositories, try to play around, try to run the code, and try to re-implement the solution on your own. on the language of your choice. Some low-level design frequently asked questions is that design a parking lot, design a URL shortening system, design an elevator system. So let's say uh, if you have only a single elevator, then how are you going to implement the up and down function? So this is fairly easy. Now let's say you work in a big office which has 10 elevators and 20 floors. How are you going to like implement the solution where the number of floors are variable, where the number of elevators can be available? When you press up in like let's say seventh floor, how how it is going to like pull in the elevator? So all those things needs to be taken care of. Design an online shopping cart. Again, here you need to take care of the multi-threaded question, which like the approach which I talked about. Again, design a search engine. So basically when they give you a search engine question, they are mostly trying want you to implement a try data structure. So basically prefix searching on some element, caching service. So basically LRU cache. So that it is one of the most hash map based, most frequently asked hash map based question. So the least recently used cache, you need to implement that. So yeah, these are the few questions on the low level design have. So just pointed that practice a lot. Both the high level design, low level design requires you to practice as many questions as you can. Without practicing, without solving them out loud, you won't understand what are the difficulties you are going to face in a real time environment. Try to give reasoning to yourself on each and every choice you are going to make. Don't fall into the trap of an easy implementation over the right implementation. Again, there's no such thing as right implementation, but try to hit the arrow as close to the target as possible. One very important thing here is that try to give as many mock interviews as you can, like in any of the high level design, low level design round, because as I mentioned, like these rounds are not your conventional lead code problems. Uh, you don't want to like pull yourself back in practice. So yeah, we have like another 30 minutes. I would like to take as much questions as you guys have. You can post in, you can raise your hand. We're done with the slide. I see one. Yeah, Manikandan.
Hi. First of all, thank you for the nice presentation. It was really useful. One thing I had is you mentioned about the mock interviews, right? Are there specific sites or portals where we can take, or do we use the books that you have mentioned to have like practice problems? How do we go about uh, attending like mock interviews?
Mock interview, like reading those books won't help you for the mock interviews. Actually, it will just help you to concretize your knowledge.
Okay.
Uh, Mock interviews, like you can go. So basically, there are multiple ways you can approach this. You can go over LinkedIn and like, let's say you're applying for Amazon. Ask an Amazon software developer if they are willing to take an interview, take your mock
Uh,
interview. Alternatively, you can go to the interviewhelp.io and like they actually are in touch with a lot of uh, candidates like me who are from again man companies, top product based companies, and they can set you up with a like with the interviewer of your choice, and you can practice with them.
could you post that site again? Is it like a interviewhelp.io? Is it?
Yeah. Roman, yeah, we are going to like share the recording of this after the session.
Okay, and just one more question is, how important is understanding of like the cloud architecture for these kind of interviews? Do they expect us to know about the different, like the, if they give like a design problem, do they expect us to know about the cloud components as well, or it's more higher level than that?
Okay, so let's say you mentioned cloud, right? So if your question is about different flavors of cloud, let's say AWS versus Google Cloud, then they don't care. But again, I'll tell you where the cloud actually helps. So there are event-based systems, okay? So
Okay.
let's say I purchase a watch from Amazon, and somehow after 15 days, no, let's assume that I put a something in my cart at Amazon. After 2 hours, I automatically get a notification or a reminder that, hey, you have placed your watch in this cart. Try to check this out, right? So how generally, like how works is that as soon as you place something in a cart, it fires an event, and that event is reached, like received by some particular service, mostly like something similar to an observer pattern. Okay,
Okay.
and these events are actually carried out in event buses called event buses. So these have a cloud flavor, like service in AWS called SNS queues.
Hmm. Yeah.
So the knowledge of those queues is actually important. The topic server, how events are passed. So those, like, you don't need to know about each and every service which AWS offers, but just that there's a requirement of a messaging queue is enough.
I got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, Tito.
Yeah. Thank you, Abhishek, for the session. So, I just had two questions. So, the first one being like, as you rightly mentioned, like during the low-level design round, sometimes the main challenge that comes into picture is the time, right? So, during one of the interviews, like I faced a similar situation. The problem in a whole was like I discussed it well, but while implementation, like at the end of the interview, I came to know that I had only implemented like one part, and there were like two other tasks to be completed, and I was not aware of that part initially. So I completely understand that practice is very critical for these rounds. So you mentioned that head first design pattern, the book, right? So are there like problems in that where I could solve, or like any other resource where I could like, can you like be specific, like where I could solve these questions, like LLD specific questions? I know like I cannot get a right or wrong answer like a LC question, but like uh, a portal or platform where I could practice these questions, or like the GitHub repositories that you mentioned.
So to answer that, Tito, so basically this again, you won't find specific questions. How you can approach this is, let's say you're interviewing for Gojek, okay, a very big company in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
So the companies like sometime ask, like for Gojek, there are 10-15 questions which it frequently asked. Okay. So that you can easily find on need to discuss sections for Gojek.
Mm-hmm.
Now you try to figure out GitHub repositories regarding like those questions. You won't get exact match, but you will get similar answers. Try to fork the GitHub repositories and try to implement them on your own within the first hour, first 1 hour, 2 hours. So after like reviewing the actual repository, that should be easier, right? Once you've understood a code base, how someone else implemented the solution, that will be actually some strong starting point of view. Again, like regarding the book which I mentioned, so there are no problems in that book. It will just tell you when a date like design pattern is preferred and when it's not. So it's more like the design patterns first go in your head, and then once you see them, you will automatically like that, okay, this is something related to single run pattern, so I can use that here. So does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Anything
yeah,
else?
yeah. I got that. Thank you so much. So, just one follow-up question was like, so, uh, so when I'm learning like LLD, so there are many design patterns, right? So do you suggest like we remember like some of those important ones? I mean, like, of course, like it comes along with practice, but initially in the starting days you need to remember like few of the important ones, I guess, right? Or how does that work?
Yeah, you
For
can
example.
start strategy pattern and all. Yeah, I understand your problem. So like this, like I personally feel that there's nothing wrong in remembering. Give it a shot. Like
Oh.
until you have practiced it so that it becomes muscle memory. It's always
Mhm.
good that you just try to memorize stuff. Make sure
Okay.
that you're fully learning them and
Mhm.
not having the solution, so that like let's say you are able to code it now, but like after 1 or 2 months it's gone. Don't do it
Mhm.
completely for the sake of clearing interviews. Make sure that you're doing this for a good career in tech. Think
Mhm.
of long term perspective.
Okay. So the in the interview, like, do they expect us to draw like the UML diagrams first and then go to
No,
the question,
like
or
you won't
just
have time, that much time in an interview.
sorry?
You won't have that much time in the interview, but let's say if it's a take home assignment, you can check with the recruiter whether they want the UML
Okay,
diagram for each
got it, got it.
interaction,
Yeah.
class diagram or sequence diagram, whatever is required. You can ask.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Abhishek.
Yeah, I have
Just one
question
question.
in chat.
Just one
uh,
question. What are the books that are recommended, book or websites?
I'll just pause my slide there. uh, So you can take note of this one, and I'll just put the HLD ones. So can you provide link to blogs or give a few name of companies who have reverted from microservice to monolith? So yeah, actually Amazon Prime did that, and a few more companies which is local to Indian startup ecosystem. Uh, so what they did was they removed their services which were hosted on cloud, and they have went back to their indigenous implementation. So they are hosting their services on their own servers now. So the trend which we see, they have somehow reversed that. So you can just Google it for more information. So there are two trends: companies reverting back from microservice to monolith, and there are some companies which are reverting back from cloud to the indigenous servers. So I don't have like all the names, but yeah, you can search it through.
So, Abhishek, with respect to following the industry trends, like what you mentioned, right?
Mhm.
One thing I've heard and think of is to follow the engineering blogs, right? Are there
Mhm.
any other resources that you know or you follow to kind of follow these trends?
So for me, basically, I am at Google, so I would say I'm a little lucky in that situations, because the entire repository is with me. So
Mm,
like, Google have its leg in each of the software which you see, right? So for me, it becomes very easy, like to go to
right,
the internet documentation. But
right.
before I was at Google, I think LinkedIn is actually a very good source. So let's say the author of this particular book, which I'm showing, Alex Zhu,
Yeah,
is like fairly active on LinkedIn.
yeah,
So
I do
I'm
follow him. Yeah,
so I'm connected to him, and like the nuggets which he share is actually very insightful, and like that is how we like remain, like we keep up ourselves updated with the trend. So similar multiple creators on his lines, you can follow them.
all right. And with respect to engineering blogs, do you have any
uh,
recommendation or is there something that you follow?
I'll just type again another LinkedIn creator who
Sure.
actually aggregates multiple blogs. So here's Arpit Bhayani, again LinkedIn. He's also Google engineer. So he like reads a lot of research articles, multiple white papers.
Thank you.
Possibly unrated, but it would be valuable to discover the current top platform for honoring algorithm skills. Is lead code hacker as effective?
Sorry, who was the one that you mentioned last, Abhishek?
Arpit Bhayani. So he's a Google engineer, staff engineer, and he reads, like his hobby is to read a lot of white papers, research papers on new fields, new systems, and he aggregates on a weekly basis multiple system new discoveries in tech.
Okay,
Could
okay.
you add his name to the chat? I mean, type.
Yeah,
or something.
are you not able to see it? Let me type in back.
Yeah, we don't see it yet.
Okay, okay. Some
Yeah, got it now.
possibly on it, but it would be relevant to discover the current top platform for honoring algorithm skills. So I think it's lead code. One reason which I feel that lead code is still the best is I'll give you my perspective. So let's say I am an engineer and I used to solve a lot of lead code questions, and it's a global platform. So like let's say I'm from India, I use lead code. Someone if someone is interviewing me from America, then it would be very helpful for me if he would also solve the questions on lead code, right? So somehow we are connected to a sample space which is smaller. Uh, so I think in that way, people around the world uses lead code, and the sample space becomes restricted. So the number of questions which you need to solve also shrinks. So that way, I think lead code is the best. I hope you understood like what I'm trying to say here, right? We have time for a few more questions. 15 minutes are still left. Again, I would say keep the questions coming. You can share your interview experience, like any of high level design, low level design, how it went for that matter. Like it would be very insightful for others. If anyone of you is willing to share.
Actually, what would be the difference between the DSA interview and design system interview?
Which design system? A high level design or low level design?
Let's say low level design system interview versus data structure algorithm interview.
So data structures will be more related to your algorithmic complexity, the trade-off which are there. Let's say what's the time complexity, what's the space complexity, how complicated a particular problem is. So in data structures round, that complications can be like very much. It is going to be a complicated question which you need to solve in the best possible time complexity. But the LLD round does not like care that much about the optimization which your system goes. It is more oriented towards the method, towards the clean practices, clean coding practices which you have done on your code. How well you have implemented a system, how flexible your system is, how flexible your code is to like new changes. That is actually the point of verification for the LLD rounds. Vatiraj, yeah, AI ML focus system. So basically, AI is the new trend currently seen in most companies. So you can actually get a ML focus system, let's say design chat GPT and all, or let's say design a LLM. So you can expect one of these questions.
Mm. Nowadays, design means cloud only, right? Is it not? I mean, almost like it's high level design means cloud only, I think, right? We have to just use cloud, various components in the cloud.
So HLD means that. LLD means you need to implement, code a solution end to end, using your like on your console. Everything remains in memory, and you have a main method from which you delegate your calls and all, maintain everything.
Mhm.
So LLDs you'll have to code.
Oh,
Okay, if there are no more questions, I think I can close the cohort after 3 minutes. Thank you all for joining. I hope this becomes helpful for you.